the next webinar.
Okay.
And we take 5 minutes, please, just for a break.
So Zeki, I'm going to type a private message to you on it. So please,
Okay.
please check your chats.
Okay.
Okay.
Bonjour, c'est qui?
Oui, bonjour, Dr. Tobin. Nous allons attendre Dr. Justina qui va parler.
Ah,
Et puis,
excusez-moi.
Dr. Justina va parler pour introduire la session.
Bien sûr, parfait.
Dr. Justina?
Yes, Seke.
Thank you. You have the floor, Dr. Justina.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, our distinguished experts, our speakers, moderator, ladies and gentlemen,
متحدثين
it's a real honor
والسادة
for us to welcome you to our second Callistus
سيدنا
Juma
أن نرحب لكم
executive
في
dialogue. As many of
الحوار
you may be
التنفيذي.
aware, the
وكما
executive
تعرفون
dialogue was
أن
actually
الحوار
established
التنفيذي
in memory
قد
of
أنشئ بذكرى
Professor Callistus Juma,
البروفيسور
who
كاليستا
had
جمعة
worked a lot
الذي
with
عمل
the
بجد
African Union
بالأكلل في الاتحاد
in
الأفريقي
creating awareness
أي من
on
أجل
science
خلق
and the need
التوعية
for
حول
innovation
العلوم
and
والحاجة إلى
emerging
الابتكار
technologies for the
والتكنولوجيا
socio-economic
الناشئة
development of
من
our
أجل
continent.
التنمية الاقتصادية
We
والاجتماعية
also
في
have
قارتنا.
the
وكذلك
AU
لدينا
high-level panel on emerging technologies, which
الهيئة
provides
العليا
technical
للاتحاد
support
الأفريقي
to
التي
our member
تقدم
states.
الدعم الفني للدول
The fact being
الأعضاء.
that now the whole world is actually moving
العالم
towards the
الآن
fourth industrial revolution,
يتوجه
and it's really imperative for Africa to also be on board this wagon. However, we know that there's a lot of
ونحن في
myths and
أفريقيا
misunderstanding
هناك الكثير
where
من سوء
emerging
الفهم
technologies
فيما
are
يتعلق
concerned.
بالتكنولوجيا
And as a
الناشئة.
result of this, it's
وكنتيجة
really
لذلك
imperative for us to share
يكون من المهم
experiences
جدا أن
and
نتبادل
knowledge in this
التجارب
regard.
والمعرفة
And
في
so
هذا الصدد.
the APET,
وبالتالي
we call it the AU high-level panel, found it really
الهيئة العليا
important to
للاتحاد
establish
الأفريقي
an
وجدت
executive
أنه من
dialogue
المهم جدا أن
whereby
ننشئ هذا الحوار التنفيذي من
high-level
خلاله
officials,
يأتي
directors,
المسؤولون كبار المسؤولين
CEOs, just people
والتنفيذيون
from the public,
والكبار
as well
المسؤولين
as the
من
private
أجل
sector and
التحدث
NGOs can
للجمهور
come
وكذلك
together
للقطاع
to
الخاص
share their
والجمهور
experiences as
كي
far as
يجتمعوا مع بعض
innovations are
ويتبادلوا
concerned, and
المعرفة
also to provide
بما يتعلق
evidence-based policy
بالتكنولوجيا
for
وكذلك
our
تقديم
government. So it's for this
السياسات
reason that the
لحكوماتنا. لهذا
Callistus
السبب
Juma Executive Dialogue
السيد
was
كاليستا جمعة
established. We've
تم
had two
إنشاء هذا الحوار.
face-to-face dialogues so far.
وكان
The first
لدينا
one was in
حوار
March
وجها لوجه في مارس
2019, and the
في
second
2019 والثاني
October
الحوار الثاني في أكتوبر
2019. The third one was
2019
actually planned for the
والثالث أي
end of
الاجتماع الثالث
April
مخطط له في نهاية
2020.
أبريل
But then with the
2020
onset of
ولكن
the
بالنظر
coronavirus
إلى
pandemic,
انتشار مرض
a lot
الكورونا
of
أو
things
جائحة
had to be
الكورونا
put on
هناك الكثير
hold,
من الأشياء
which
التي
includes
توقفت
our executive dialogue as
بما
well.
في ذلك
However, we felt that it
الحوار
was
التنفيذي.
imperative
وقد
for us
رأينا
to
أنه من المهم
continue
جدا
the
أن
conversation
نستمر
as far as
الحوار
science
نستمر في
innovation
الحوار
and
فيما يتعلق
emerging technologies
بالابتكار
are concerned.
والتكنولوجيا
And
الناشئة.
so talking about emerging
وإذا
technologies, here
نتكلم عن
we are
التكنولوجيا الناشئة
using
نحن
one
الآن
of
نستخدم
the
واحدة
most
من
needed
هذه
technologies,
المخرجات
which is
الأكثر
Zoom and
حاجة
other
وهي تكنولوجيا الزوم
technologies
والتقنيات
continue
الأخرى
the conversation. And so it's to
إلى
this
تسهيل
end
الحوار.
that we
ولهذا
organized
الغرض نحن
this
نقوم
webinar
بتنفيذ
to come
هذا
together
الحوار
and to
أو هذا
continue the
الاجتماع من
dialogue
أجل
that
أن
we
نستمر
had
في
started.
الحوار الذي
So the
بدأناه.
intent is that when we continue
والقصد
it
هو
and later
أنه
on
عندما
the
نبدأ
borders are
نستمر في هذا
opened,
الحوار
then
وبالتالي
we'll be
عندما
able
يفتح
to
المجال
meet
لاحقا
face to face.
يمكن أن نلتقي
And so
وجها
with
لوجه.
this, I would like to really
وبالتالي
welcome
أود
you all,
أن أرحب بكم
distinguished
جميعا السادة الكبار
invitees,
الضيوف
delegates, and
والمدعوين
participants to today's discussion.
والمشاركين
And
من
we are
أجل
really looking
الحوار.
forward
ونحن
to
نتطلع
a really
إلى
vibrant discussion this
مناقشات
afternoon.
مثمرة
And so
بعد
please
هذا
feel
المساء.
relaxed and
وأرجو أن
just
تأخذوا راحتكم
contribute as much as you can.
وساهموا
So
بقدر
the
ما
theme for
تستطيعون.
this
فإن
afternoon is the
الموضوع
effective
لهذه الجلسة
utilization of
الاستخدام
innovation and
الأمثل
emerging technologies in
للابتكار
addressing development
والتكنولوجيا الناشئة من
challenges.
أجل
We're going to hear
معالجة
about the
تحديات
experiences of island countries,
التنمية.
and we're also going to hear
ونحن
about the
كذلك
AU
سنسمع
perspective
من
on
منظور عن منظور
addressing
الاتحاد الأفريقي فيما يتعلق
COVID-19 or the
بمعالجة
coronavirus
جائحة الكورونا.
pandemic. Now, after the presentation,
وبعد
we're also keen
تقديم
to
الأوراق
listen
فنحن
to
شوقين من أن
contributions
نستمع
from member
للمساهمات
states.
من
What are
الدول
countries
الأعضاء.
doing to address this
ماذا
pandemic?
تقوم به الدول
And
من
in
أجل
doing
معالجة
so,
هذه الجائحة.
we are
وفي
also
هذا
talking about
سنتكلم
not only what
عن
is going to happen
ليس
at this
ماذا
point, what is
سيحصل
being
في
done
هذه
by
النقطة،
countries
وإنما
at
ما
this
تم
point to
بالفعل من قبل
address the
الدول
pandemic,
حتى
but
الآن من
most
أجل معالجة
importantly,
الجائحة.
what
والأهم
will
من
be done
ذلك
post-COVID-19, because that is going to be the long-term solution. And so I would really like to welcome each and every one of us. We thank you very much for really taking time out of your busy schedules to participate in this webinar. We know that there's quite a number of webinars going on out there, and so we do not take it for granted that you have joined us. We are very appreciative. Now, just a few house rules before we continue. First of all, to indicate that we do have a simultaneous interpretation going on, and so we have the interpretation from English to French, English to Portuguese, and English to Arabic as well. And we would like to also encourage participants to introduce yourselves in the chat box to your right. If you can just indicate your name and then the country and institution that you work with. Secondly, we would like to ask if we can kindly switch off our videos, because that actually helps us to save bandwidth, and not only that, but it provides more clarity in hearing the speakers and also when we speak. And I would also like to request that we can type the questions in the Q&A section on the Zoom, and also write comments that we have in the chat box during presentation. Sometimes it's difficult to follow, so we can write our comments pertaining to the presentations. And I would also like to kindly inform that the webinar is being recorded, and this is for our own purposes, so we can keep record on of the webinar that we're undertaking. So once again, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to welcome you to the second Callistus Juma Executive Dialogue. So please just relax, and then let us have a very productive and fruitful deliberation. Thank you very much. So at this point, I'd like to hand you over to my colleague, Mr. Lukovic Seke, who would introduce the speakers as well as the moderator. Thank you once again. Seke, over to you.
Thank you so very much, Justina. Distinguished guest, it's an honor for us to having you again today after our webinar of the week on Tuesday on measurement of R&D and innovation. Everything that has been said by Dr. Justina, that today we are going to talk about innovation in emerging technology. The moderator of the day is Dr. Felix Tobin from Cote d'Ivoire, and we have two speakers today to allow all of you to ask questions. So we are going to have a very interactive discussion today with you. And the first speaker will be Mr. Estiko Xavier. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the National Institute for Science, Technology, and Innovation in Seychelles. And the second speaker is our colleague, Dr. Monica Bele Idinova. She worked at the African Union Commission. So I'm going to hand over now to Dr. Tobin. Thank you.
Félix Tobin.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Seke. Merci, Dr. Justina. Je m'appelle Félix Tobin. Je suis membre du Comité national d'éthique des sciences de la vie et de la santé.
الترجمة إلى العربية من الفرنسية للعربية غير متوفرة مع الأسف الشديد.
Société civile. J'ai également été actif dans un certain nombre d'organisations non gouvernementales, telles qu'en son temps l'Association africaine d'éducation et de développement. J'ai été fonctionnaire à la Banque africaine de développement, secrétariat général, au département des services linguistiques et à l'unité de la communication. Je suis médiateur professionnel certifié de l'UCAO, Université catholique d'Afrique de l'Ouest, et de l'Institut de formation à la médiation et négociation de l'Institut catholique de Paris. De quoi allons-nous nous entretenir cet après-midi? Des technologies émergentes et de leur impact sur le développement des États insulaires et des pays tropicaux africains.
على التنمية بصورة كبيرة،
le docteur Justin
وبالتالي فإن
la réponse de l'Union africaine à la pandémie de la COVID-19. Revenons donc au sujet qui nous préoccupe cet après-midi. Quelle est la pertinence des drones, de l'intelligence artificielle, de la blockchain, de la 5G, de l'impression 3D, de la robotique, de la réalité virtuelle étendue ou augmentée et de l'Internet des objets, pour ne citer que celle-là parmi les technologies émergentes. Quelle est la pertinence de ces technologies pour des pays tels que les Comores, la Guinée-Bissau, Sao Tomé-Principe, le Cap-Vert, Maurice ou les Seychelles? Ce sont ces pays qu'on appelle les petits États insulaires, petits par leur superficie et petits également par le nombre de leur population. Vous l'aurez constaté, même si les 3 premiers nommés appartiennent à la catégorie des pays les moins avancés, les autres ont un niveau de développement
المعذرة الترجمة من الفرنسية إلى الإنجليزية غير متوفرة مع الأسف الشديد.
Conditions météorologiques qui sont parfois extrêmes, à la montée du niveau de la mer qui entraîne beaucoup de vulnérabilité. La question qui se pose est de savoir quelles technologies émergentes, au singulier ou au pluriel, sont susceptibles de soutenir l'agriculture, l'élevage et la pêche dans ces pays pour les aider à réduire leurs importations vis-à-vis de l'étranger. Nous savons, cela nous sera certainement redit par l'un des orateurs, nous le savons du côté énergétique, les micro-réseaux éoliens ont déjà fait leurs preuves. Y a-t-il place pour une plus forte intensification de ces réseaux? Nous avons parlé des pays insulaires africains. Qu'ont-ils de particulier par rapport aux pays tropicaux qui sont eux aussi soumis aux dégâts du changement climatique, à la montée également de niveau de la mer et à toutes les catastrophes écologiques auxquelles nous assistons, même si pour l'heure, elles sont mises en silence à cause de cette pandémie de la COVID. Les pays de la zone tropicale seraient-ils mieux lotis? Il est difficile de répondre par l'affirmative. Même avec des populations se chiffrant par des dizaines de millions d'habitants répandus sur des territoires plus vastes, l'inadéquation entre la formation et le marché de l'emploi rend plus que nécessaire le recours aux technologies émergentes pour, et là j'emboîte le pas, au groupe de haut niveau de l'Union africaine sur les technologies émergentes, pour s'assurer un développement accéléré dans les secteurs clés de la santé, de l'agriculture et de l'énergie. Et pour mettre l'Afrique de plein pied dans la 4e révolution industrielle, les technologies à mettre en œuvre seraient la robotique, les nanotechnologies, les biotechnologies, les sciences des matériaux et l'intelligence artificielle. S'agit-il là de vœux pieux ou bien y a-t-il déjà des débuts de mise en œuvre de ces technologies qui pourraient présenter un bilan même partiel? Je suis persuadé que les intervenants, les participants à ce webinaire nous apporteront des réponses à ces différentes questions. Il s'agisse du Nigeria, où des expériences, plus que des expériences, des essais très prometteurs ont été faits dans le domaine de la culture du manioc en recourant au matériel génétique Il pourrait s'agir également de l'éradication de la trypanosomiase, la maladie du sommeil, grâce à un outil biotechnologique, à savoir la technique de l'insecte stérile qui a été utilisée avec succès à Zanzibar. Il pourra s'agir également dans le domaine de l'agroforesterie, de toutes les tentatives faites pour préserver des espèces forestières importantes des forêts tropicales humides du bassin du Congo. La biotechnologie est sans doute l'un des outils qui, associés à des incitations appropriées, pourra permettre aux agriculteurs et aux entreprises d'Afrique de combler le fossé de la productivité. Et l'éthique dans tout cela. L'éthique vise la protection de la personne et de sa dignité, en tant que personne, en tant qu'individu, mais en tant également que collectivité, en tant que nation, et pour ce qui nous concerne, en tant que continent. Le déploiement de ces nouvelles technologies et de ces technologies émergentes nous met-elle à l'abri d'une expropriation de nous-mêmes? Nous pouvons nous poser la question: les technologies émergentes, à défaut d'être un leurre pour les pays laissés pour compte, ne va-t-elle pas conduire à une déshumanisation au nom d'un transhumanisme dont nul ne sait où il conduira une humanité qui peine depuis une soixantaine de millions d'années à trouver ses marques? Monsieur Seke, voilà les quelques propos introductifs que je voulais faire à l'entame de ce webinaire.
المعذرة، الترجمة غير متوفرة من الفرنسية إلى الإنجليزية مع الأسف الشديد.
Il semble que M. Seke ne m'entend pas.
Oui, Dr. Tobin, on a un problème parce que vous parlez dans la chaîne anglaise. S'il y a possibilité de voir les globes qui est en bas pour bouger et aller en français, parce que les anglophones ont deux langues à la fois. Juste
okay. Est-ce que ça va maintenant?
Aller en français. Là, après record.
Il y a un petit souci parce que moi, j'entendais l'arabe à la place du floor.
No, he was speaking in French.
Yes. Now, what should I do now?
Maybe if you speak English, Dr. Tobin.
Parce que the sound was off at a point in time.
الصوت غير متاح في
If you can carry on in English, is fine.
هل يمكن أن تستمر باللغة الإنجليزية؟ شكرا.
He has finished his presentation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tobin.
شكرا جزيلا دكتور توبين.
Well, I'm a little puzzled. Could I?
هل يمكن؟
Now, I can hear the French translation. Is it okay?
أنا أسمع الترجمة
الفرنسية. Could I put my
Yeah, please continue in English.
تستمر بالإنجليزية. تفضل.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Now, is it okay now? But
yeah.
Can you hear me? But I cannot hear anybody.
لا أسمعكم.
We can hear you.
Okay.
نحن نسمعك.
That's okay then. Now, well, I made my introduction.
أنا قدمت أو عرضت المقدمة.
Can you hear me?
هل تسمعونني؟
Yes, we can. Please go ahead, Dr. Tobin. Please go ahead.
تفضل دكتور توبين، نسمعك.
Yes. You can. It's okay. It's okay, Dr. Tobin.
Okay. Now, what should I ask? What should I add? I think well,
ما علي أن
my
أضيفه هو
introductory remarks
أن
were done.
التعليق
Yeah,
المقدمة
thank you very much. So we'll now ask the second speaker to make his presentation, and then the third one, then we'll have discussions after.
Yes.
So Mr. Seke, can you just take over, please?
هل يمكن
Okay,
أن
thank you so very much, Justina.
شكرا
Thank you,
جزيلا
Dr. Tobin.
دكتور
We had a
توبين.
little challenge with regard to the
لدينا
language, but we are going to
التحدي
move
فيما
to the
يتعلق
next
باللغات
speaker,
ولكن
who's
سننتقل إلى المتحدث التالي
Mr. Estiko.
وهو
So,
السيد استيكو.
Dr. Tobin, we have Mr. Estiko with us, who's going to take over now,
لدينا
and
السيد
then we
استيكو
will
الذي
moderate from there. Thank you
سيأخذ
so very much.
الميكروفون الآن
We can
وسننطلق
still
من
hear
هناك.
you, even though you don't hear.
Well, I can hear, and I will be here listening to
أنا
Mr.
سأكون
Estiko with
موجودا
pleasure because he was with us 2
وسأستمع
days
للسيد
ago.
استيكو.
Thank you.
شكرا
Mr.
جزيلا.
Estiko.
السيد تيكو تفضل.
Good afternoon to everyone, and
مساء الخير جميعا.
thank you, Mr. Lukovic,
وأشكرك سيد
giving
لوكوفي
this opportunity to present
وكونكم أعطيتم لي هذه
10 minutes
الفرصة لكي
presentation
أقدم ورقة لمدة 10
perspective
دقائق
of the Seychelles Island,
حول
Republic of Seychelles, which is in, to remind you, is the smallest state with the smallest population in Africa, and also the most remote and insular islands. So I'm going to present in this 10 minutes window what we are doing in terms of the application of innovations and emerging technologies towards achieving the blue economy. The African Union perceived the blue economy as the new frontier of Africa's renaissance. This is relatively new approach. This relatively new approach that can be a driver for Africa's welfare and prosperity, particularly in the context of the population dynamics. 2.5 billion inhabitants expected by 2050, and an everlasting migration towards coastlines. It needs, in terms of employment, food security, transport, and infrastructure, as well as in the context of building strategic and balanced ties with international partners, notably economic partnership agreement with the European Union and the Chinese initiative Belt and Road. At the level of the Indian Ocean Commission, and more broadly at continental level, Seychelles is seen as a champion of the blue economy. The government has embraced the concept of the blue economy as a mechanism to realize sustainable economic development. Discussion on the blue economy started in 2014, after which the country established in 2015 a dedicated department of the blue economy with the portfolio under the Vice President's office. The blue economy vision for Seychelles is to develop related concept as a means to realize the nation's development potential through innovation, knowledge-based approaches, being mindful of the need to preserve the integrity of Seychelles' marine environment and heritage for the present and future generations. The vision encapsulates 7 overarching blue economy principles: economic efficiency, sustainability, social equity, resilience, innovation, transparency, and accountability and partnership. For us to be able to launch into sustainable development and managing the vast ocean space we have of over 101.4 million square kilometers of marine space, Seychelles is the first island developing state to put in place a marine special plan. Phase 1 zone area was gazetted in February 2018. The new area fulfilled the first milestone requirement for Seychelles depth swap, reaching half of 30% of goal for marine biodiversity protection. Milestones 2 reaches 26% in the new marine protection zone, which equates around 400,000 square kilometers. So we start with innovation. First, for innovation, we need funds. So for us to be able to fund those ambitious projects, we have got a number, particularly 2 innovative financing mechanisms in place. The Blue Bond, which raised around $15 million from international investors, demonstrate the potential for countries to harness capital markets for financing the sustainable use of marine resources. And then the second one is the world's first sovereign Blue Bond, a pioneering financial instrument designed to support sustainable marine and fisheries projects. The debt swap in 2018, Seychelles, a Commonwealth state, became the first ever country to successfully undertake a debt for nature swap to protect the world's ocean. It is a compelling example of leveraging countries' assets as part of the blue economy sector, a comparative advantage for a large ocean state. Despite the fact that we are roughly not over 500 square kilometers of land surface, which is account about 1% of our territory. We are 1% land, 99% ocean. We are not a small country. We are considered to be a large ocean state. So for such a large open state, we need the application of emerging and frontier technologies to have a sustainable development of the blue economy space. If we look at, not going back to my predecessor, there is a stack of emerging technologies that Seychelles has identified, which is relevant to the blue economy. We start with the space and satellite technologies. Leveraging of space and satellite technologies for maritime surveillance and security over 1 million square kilometers of EEZ is very important for us. We will never be able to make a surveillance of such a large space with conventional technologies, including maritime security, because we know in the ocean today, there's so many security issues. A few years ago, we were victim of the onslaught of Somalian pirates in our zone that affected our fishing industry. We have contrabands, a lot of illegal fishing, as well as also illegal trades, including traffic of narcotics. We are also we need to track our shipping vessels wherever they are. We are leveraging, we are using VMS. Vessel monitoring system is a satellite-based monitoring system which at regular intervals provides data to the Fisheries Authority on the location, courses, and speed of our vessels. We are making use of satellite-based technology for safer navigation with global positioning system as we transit from ground-based radar surveillance system to satellite-based surveillance system, not only for the surface navigation, but also for FIR, the Flight Information Region, which is probably the largest one in Africa. So these are very, very important emerging technologies that we are leveraging in our blue economy space. Remote sensing via satellite-based monitoring for coastline soil salinity level. There are many other space and satellite technologies prospecting in Seychelles for maritime surveillance and security for a secure and sustainable blue economy space. For climate change mitigation, more than ever, we using satellite data for better for meteorological forecasts and also for other climate change mitigation programs. Blockchain. Seychelles is taking the lead in the application of blockchain in the seafood value chain with the Seychelles National Asset Management Project. This is a joint project being led by National Institute for Science, Technology, and Innovation, which I'm the CEO, in partnership with a foreign partner and the leadership of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. This will give Seychelles a lead in the application of blockchain to ensure that all our product from the seafood industry reaches the market with a sustainability label. This is the trend these days. The buyers would like to know how the product is being fished from point of harvest to shelf. Drones and remote operating vehicle. The use of drone technology for coral reef monitoring and of coastal erosion by Blue Economy Research Institute of the University of Seychelles. The use of ROV for bathymetry study of the marine space in collaboration with the University of Oxford under the big Nexton project. And other regional international research institutes, including other universities around the world. Biotechnology, renewable energy. Renewable energy also is considered as one of the emerging technologies or frontier technologies of the fourth industrial revolution. Seychelles has an ambitious target to be 100% renewable with renewable energy by 2050. Technology in the blue economy space will be a big part to achieving this target. Currently, there are offshore wind turbines generating and feeding electricity to the national grid. We will be the first floating solar farm on the continent, and it is to be built this year. Technology prospecting in wave energy is also on the table. Ocean thermal conversion, OTEC, and other resources are also being prospected. We're looking at the energy mix to achieving this 100% by 2050. Biotechnology. Seychelles has recognized the importance of biotechnology in the blue economy space. However, our local capability is still limited, but it has had application so far in large reef restoration project. 1999, we had it was an effect of El Nino, and we had a very bad one that we had over 90% of our coral reef on the Atlantic Plateau were completely destroyed. So we had to rush again to have a race against time to restore the marine ecosystem. And we've been applying biotechnology in this process of reef restoration. Value addition industry, example, liquid seaweed biostimulant production is already being done in Seychelles. And also we're looking at producing animal feed from fish waste and other products. In a conclusive note, I would say that the perception of African Union of the blue economy as the new frontier of African research can only be achieved through innovation and the leverage of emerging technologies. Seychelles as a leader on the continent has already charted the course to achieving this lofty goal. However, as a small island developing state, we cannot achieve neither our national goals as well as the continent goal. It can only be achieved through collaboration and partnership. It is to this purpose that Seychelles is proposing to start the setting up of a regional blue economy incubator. And on this note, I would like to thank you all for your attention.
Merci. Dr. Tobin, vous avez la parole pour la modération. Nous allons passer à Dr. Monica.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Xavier Estico. There was a time where lots of people were mentioning Indian Ocean Rim as a place of meeting and linking together economies from that region. You've mentioned quite a few very promising remarks, which embark on almost any aspect of emerging technologies. That is very enriching to us. And I hope that during the questions and answers period, you'll have a chance to come back to be more explicit on some of those issues you've just broached and raised. Thank you very much, Xavier Estico.
Welcome, Doctor.
Now, the next speaker, Dr. Monica Ebele.
Yes, I am here.
Okay, please go ahead.
Good evening, colleagues, and great to know that we are all keeping safe and well. I have been introduced. I work for the African Union Commission Department of Human Resource Science and Technology as a principal scientific officer. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Yes, we can. Yes. Please proceed.
Yeah. So, we are all aware that with the new normal that we have found ourselves as a result of the coronavirus pandemic, it is very useful for every one of us to be well informed on some of the responses around our continent. So with the few minutes that I have for this forum, I will just highlight a few of such initiatives that the African Union has put in place to respond to COVID-19 pandemic. COVID-19 pandemic, as we know it, is associated with common characteristics which cuts across communities, nations, continents, and sectors, thereby requiring interventions at all levels, sectors, and in an engaging and inclusive way. So no one actually is to be left out. No sector is to be left out in providing responses to the COVID-19 pandemic. So at the African Union, I will quickly point out that there are several initiatives that have been put in place, both with the African CDC at the level of our management and at the departmental and offices of the AU. But time will not allow me to dive into all the responses from all these various offices. At the level of the African CDC, quite a lot has been done to support the member states in terms of training, support delivering of essential testing equipment, which includes face shield and other personal protective equipment. The African CDC also recently established the African Joint Continental Strategy for COVID-19 Outbreak, AFCON, Technical Working Group to coordinate efforts in several areas. And I will quickly mention those areas where this Technical Working Group is focusing on. They are focusing on laboratory diagnostics and subtyping, surveillance and detection, infection, prevention and control, clinical management, supply chain and stockpiles, risk communication, science standards and regulations. Then at the African Union management level, the AUC recently created an African Union COVID-19 response fund with the aim of strengthening the continental response to COVID-19 and also to mitigate its socioeconomic and humanitarian impact on African population. This fund was established by the chairman of the African Union on March 26, 2020. The money that is expected to be raised in this fund will be used to cover three key areas of intervention. One, mitigation and social, economic, and humanitarian impact of COVID-19 in all African countries. You will agree with me that this is quite important because the COVID-19 pandemic threatens to revise the socioeconomic advancement that we have already made in Africa over the last few years. Then the second area is to boost the capacity of the African CDC to support response to public health emergencies across the continent. The African CDC, we know, was created to support efforts by member states to prepare for and respond to public health threats across the continent. So part of this fund will be used to boost their capacity to fully play their role around the continent. Then the other area where this fund will be used is to support the procurement and distribution of essential COVID-19 medical equipment and supplies, and also to mobilize rapid response by member states. We know that with COVID-19, there has been competition in the world markets for the supply of COVID-19 response materials. So this fund is intended to supply and to support the pool of procurement of diagnostics and other medical commodities by the African CDC for distribution to our member states, and also to support the deployment of to many community workers around the continent. Now, at the level of the departments, as I mentioned earlier, all the departments are providing responses in one way or the other. But for this meeting, let me focus on what the Department of Human Resources, Science and Technology has done in the key areas that the department covers, which is education, science, technology, and the youth. Now, under education, the responses that has been provided are: one, in collaboration with our technical offices, for example, the African Union International Center for Girls and Women Education, the IPED repository, our repository for education statistics, the Pan-African University, and the Pavio, which is our online learning. A lot has been done. We have been able to send directives to the ministries in charge of education to ensure to use the digital connectivity and offline learning. We have also advised ministries to plan on how to reopen schools with appropriate strategies to catch up on the lost period of learning, and also to implement a back-to-school campaign and implement measures to curb further infections in schools and educational institutions. We have also advised member states to ensure that they document the impact of school closure, especially for girls and vulnerable children and other vulnerable groups, as well as to ensure that they document what were the good practices around their communities and their countries, and to also ensure to monitor learning engagement with support from partners, and with the view to facilitate inter-country learning and upscaling of good practices. Then the Department of has also mobilized commitment of development partners to support member states to implement education response to COVID-19 in online and distance learning. We're collaborating with partners like UNICEF, HP, Bill and Melinda Gates, and more initiatives are also in the pipeline with some other partners. Now, under the Pan-African Visual and E-Varsity, we launched a couple of online courses in the cloud, and the department is working to revitalize the Pavio courses and further launch new ones in entrepreneurship for development and skills for employability in collaboration with the Pavio, the African Virtual University. Then we also have, under the Africa's International Center for Girls and Women Education in Africa, which is based in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, 2 stakeholders webinars have been organized to discuss initiatives at the grassroots. What are the initiatives that are taking place at the grassroots, at national and regional level, that will address the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on girls and women education? And I'm glad to tell us in this meeting that the AU member states, educational practitioners, development partners, and youths discussed social and psychological impact of school closure on girls and young women, as well as shared their experiences and challenges which they are facing in implementing continuous learning initiatives. Key recommendation of this meeting is supposed to be formulated with stakeholders for gender-sensitive education responses to COVID-19, and also for us to be able to catch up with strategies when school will resume. Now on science, technology, and innovation responses to COVID-19, the department, through the Steering Technical Committee for Education, Science, and Technology, initiated some efforts for rapid research and development and innovation response policies in the following areas. One, in collaboration with UNESCO, the department secured support for the African Union in water purification, provision in collaboration with the African CDC facial protective shields, which is obtained from 3D printing, and also mobilizing UNESCO networks for open sciences within and outside Africa to enable us to exchange scientific information, data, and also collective intelligence, and also to have a pool of ideas for African scientists. So with a view, this is with a view to help us find solutions to the current COVID-19 outbreak. And to this effect, Professor Colvin McGuigan of the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland, who was a one-time awardee of the UNESCO Equatorial Guinea Awards, will be launching an online training on how to improve access to safe water for vulnerable communities in Africa and elsewhere around the world through solar disinfection of water. So please watch out for that online training. More information we will pass on to you on that. Also on science and technology responses, through our office in Abuja, the African Scientific Research and Innovation Council is also mobilizing the scientific community to carry out studies on the impact of COVID-19 on Africa's food and nutritional security, the socioeconomic impact, and also on Africans' indigenous knowledge to prevent and control emerging infectious diseases on the continent, utilizing an Afrocentric response. The department also, through our partnership with the African Union EU high-level dialogues on science, technology, and innovation, is exploring ways to prioritize the partnership to focus on global health and also use our existing platforms such as the Europe and developing countries clinical trial partnership, the EDCTP, to address issues of research and innovation, particularly in areas of vaccines and diagnosis. So the HLPD, to further go to make progress with this decision, we'll be convening a meeting on the 18th of June 2020 so that we can agree on issues that include science advice for policy, how we can mainstream gender dimension in COVID-19 research and innovation, and of course in other areas such as the open science, open data, and innovation. Now, coming down to our third area of focus within the department, which is on the youth. The department developed and is implementing the youth response to COVID-19 with the objectives to, one, reduce health risk of COVID-19 among the young people. Secondly, to minimize the impact of COVID-19 on young people. Thirdly, to mobilize and engage the young people to be responders to COVID-19. And to achieve this, we have put in place 4 initiatives, which are around 4 teams, in 4 areas. We are encouraging them to be safe. There's a health campaign, whereby we're asking that the youths have to improve their knowledge and self-care among themselves. The other thing is continued learning initiative to provide opportunities for online continuing learning among the young people. The third one is Be an Innovator, which is an initiative to provide opportunities for young people to be creative, innovate around COVID-19 challenges. It is true that there are quite a lot of challenges for COVID-19, but there are also lots of opportunities. The fourth area is Be a Responder initiative, which is to mobilize young people to safely respond in supporting your other young people and communities to deal with COVID-19. Also with COVID-19, the department is expediting implementation of the Education, Science, Technology and Innovation Fund with the African Development Bank. To date, a couple of meetings have been organized and a task force has been established to work out the modalities of the fund. We have also, in the course of COVID-19, organized the steering technical committee for education, science and technology response to COVID-19 pandemic. On the 9th of April, we had a bureau meeting, and on the 30th was followed by the ministerial meeting on the 30th of April. And the key outcome from this meeting includes the following: that there is a need to build on what is already existing in terms of instruments and networks. For instance, we have networks like the African Academy of Sciences, National Academies of Sciences, Science Granting Councils, the Council for Development of Social Sciences Research in Africa, the African Union Outdoor Science, Technology, and Innovation Flagship Programs, and also the African Medicines Regulatory Harmonization Initiative, and the other likes like the asterisk that we have with the African Union office in Abuja. And they are supposed to be strengthened. The meeting proposed that these instruments and networks be strengthened in the following areas. One, establishment of research and development platforms at national, regional, and continental levels for sharing best practices, information, mutual learning, and upskilling initiatives with a regional dimension, and also to help us minimize duplication of efforts, with COVID-19. Then the second area where they're supposed to be strengthened is in the area of conducting and documenting scientific priority setting, which includes research and development activities, identifying gaps, promoting networking, coordination, intra-Africa collaboration on COVID-19, and also other future outbreaks of pandemics. Then the third area is to establish, strengthen, and support networks of biosafety and biosecurity laboratories in the continent. They were also supposed to promote human and institutional capacity building, and then also evaluate, promote treatment protocols and other experiences by African researchers in line with demographic and climatic realities of the continent. The other outcome of the ministerial meeting is also the need to strengthen a rapid improvement and development of productive capacity in Africa for supportive medical supplies and personal productive equipment. We all know that it is with the pandemic that every country began to run hectare-scatter, to provide, to begin to find ways to manufacture some of this very simple personal protective equipment on a commercial scale. Otherwise, previously, most of them were imported from China and elsewhere. So they are also supposed to be strengthened in the area of ventilators, masks, gloves to support our frontline health workers in the fight against COVID-19. In the process, promote the development of African technologies and solutions to respond to the crisis and minimize our overdependence on countries outside Africa. Now, in conclusion, I would like to say that although COVID-19 came with lots of burden, it has also provided us with a lot of windows of opportunity for greater collaboration, engagement, and new ways of doing business for our solution. And moving forward, I would like to say that COVID-19 provided us with the opportunity to unlock several opportunities of intervention for research and for us to begin to redefine our priorities. What are the areas that we should begin to emphasize as science, technology, and innovation for education and for youth? Should we emphasize more on technology or more on sciences of understanding, some of these pandemics, or more of innovation that could help us to produce, some of the things that we need to cope with pandemics? I thank you very much for listening to me, and I'm here for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Docteur Monica Idinoba, c'est nous qui vous remercions pour cet exposé riche et qui nous a permis d'apprendre beaucoup sur ce que l'Union africaine a fait et envisage de faire. J'ai le sentiment que l'Agence de développement de l'Union africaine est la grande méconnue sur le continent. Et l'émergence, disons, la survenue du Covid nous a réveillés au moment où les grandes organisations sanitaires globales ne répondaient pas à l'Afrique. Je me pose secrètement une question.
Prof Tobin, pouvez-vous parler en anglais? Prof Tobin, parlez en anglais, s'il vous plaît. Merci.
Okay, I'll come back. But just saying that this pandemic revealed to us lots of aspects of the African Union that we were not aware of. Much was expected from African bodies, and still much is expected from the African Union, and especially Africa CDC, because it's close to us. You know our needs, you know our weaknesses, but we do not know that you know. And what you said in the conclusion just means a lot. What can we do? What we can do? You must remember that when Africa showed that resilience to COVID, what was it? Because we have in some countries of Africa, we have the former experience of Ebola and HIV. And in your conclusion, you mentioned that the prospects of diseases control are important to African Union. It's important for us. And I was reading some of the comments and questions in the conversation section. This is a field where what I gather is that Africa must try and rely on herself. We have seen experiences from Mali, from Burkina Faso, from other countries. I will not mention Malagasy because that was something out of this world. And that was a pride for Africa, but we think that much more is to come ahead. Merci. Thank you very much, Monica Ebele. Sorry if I switch too easily from English to French because I was supposed to make my presentation in French. Thank you very much.
Merci, Dr. Tobin. Nous allons passer aux questions en laissant les orateurs. Sorry, thank you, Dr. Tobin. We need to allow our participants to start asking questions. The innovation in our webinar, we are going to allow the participant to speak. So we'll unmute your mic once you raise your hand. My colleague, Barbara and myself will be unmuting your mic. So Dr. Tobin, you can carry on now. We need to allow them to raise their hand and allow them to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We have one who raised the hand. Yes, Prof. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Sunday, Professor Sunday.
Yes, I listed some questions on the question and answer. One of them is that COVID-19 experience could be exploited as an incubator for innovation in exploiting the emerging technologies for our development challenges. How can we go about this? And through this, can we see an opportunity to provide African solutions to African problems and shed off our dependency syndrome? Thank you.
Professor Ojo, sir, you may remember the long forgotten Lagos Action Plan that was supposed to run from 1980 to 20, something like that, was supposed to last, I think, for 40 years. And it implied endogenous homegrown solutions to Africa's problems in any field of human activity. What you are saying sends us back to that desire of those who crafted the Lagos Action Plan. And of course, we have to try and devise means and ways to achieve that goal, because it's high time that Africa stops begging solutions from elsewhere. We have the brains, we have the material, we have the youth to do that. And I think that emerging technologies should help us to leapfrog from one situation to a more acceptable situation. That is my viewpoint on your question. There may be other contributions to enrich what I've said.
I have some questions posted. I need to read them. And after that, we have James Koba, Musa Aria, we have Galaxy Dotalita. So we are going to come back to you. Kindly allow me to read some questions which were asked before. Prof. Ojo, your question has been attended to. Let me go down. I have Professor Mamadou Sy, National Director of Scientific Research in Senegal, is asking this question. COVID-19 pandemic has revealed that we are so dependent on the medical aspects. That is not very good. How can Africa handle this problem in focusing on its pharmaceutical laboratory and other useful units? That is a question from Prof. Mamadou Sy in Senegal. I'm seeing another question here. Yeah, we have another question from Dr. Bekani Mbuli. Can the African Union be able to create its own Food and Drug Administration to spearhead the adoption of African-made medicine and alternative medicine in Africa, including testing, monitoring, and evaluation of drugs from African scientists, instead of relying on the WHO, US FDA? Here you can create an African FDA that follows similar protocol to the US FDA or WHO. So I'm going to allow at least 4 to ask questions. Let us start with Dr. Lita, and then the moderators and speaker can intervene. Also resource person who are in this webinar. Dr. Lita. You have the mic. Moving to Musa, Dr. Lita could not speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so I was saying thank you very much for giving me the floor. I've listened to the presentations with keen interest, and before I even post my questions, I want to agree with Mr. Tobin, who says that the Lagos Plan of Action had everything we would be looking for. Actually, I did recognize Article 9 of the Lagos Plan of Action comprehensively looked at the gender issues then. So really, if we had started implementing our own ideas, we would be very far. Now, coming back to COVID-19, I am very pleased to hear what particularly the presenter from the African Union Commission has said about the work that the CDC is doing. I have two questions. The first one, we know that the lockdown has affected rural schools and that children in rural areas are not able to go to school, and yet they may also have e-learning facilities. And so what is happening to those schools? Because we are going, if we are not careful, to create another learning gap between urban schools and rural schools. I say this very briefly because I remember when the NEPAD e-school program was initiated, the issue of taking it to rural schools came up, and we even had, battery-ran computers then. Is this being used for rural schools? Those are my questions. Thank you very much.
Dr. Lita, for the next speaker, we will advise you to be very short. I know that Dr. Lita is very passionate to youth because she was handling that matter on the continent. So, Mr. Stiko, Dr. Monica, you have the floor, and Dr. Tobin, you can also help. Those are the first questions. I'm going to come back to the next one. Thank you.
Can I respond to some of the questions? Hello?
You are welcome.
Okay. We all agree with me that COVID-19 kind of took everyone on unawares, and as a result, a lot of things previously that we took for granted were not actually put in place. We never could imagine that schools could close for this long. But I want to say that, it's a wake-up call for many of our ministers and our governments. And I know that, quite a number of them are taking real actions to ensure that, no one is left out in terms of education. This was clear in the meeting that we had of the Ministers of Education, Science and Technology on the 30th of April. But also, like I mentioned previously, when I made my presentation, I said at the level of the African Union, we have also come up with this, software that we enable both offline and online learning for both teachers and also facilitators. This is to enable people in local communities where there is no internet accessible to be able to have learning even when there is school closure. So that is ongoing. This has been introduced to member states. I wouldn't know how far it may have been distributed all around their countries, but this is also ongoing. Then on the area of I think there was a question on what on African Union having probably an office to deal like WHO. Again, like I said, this pandemic has made us to begin to realize so many areas that we could, that we can function. I'm not in the top management, but I think, with this pandemic, a lot of other initiatives will come along, to ensure that, whenever there is a pandemic or there is anything like this, we can be sure that, we're able to take care of ourselves and also deal with our problems in our own context. For now, while I'm looking at the other questions, I will come back. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stiko, if you have something to say, you raise your hand as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I think despite the fact that my presentation was more into the blue economy, not too much into the COVID-19, but the COVID-19 is also, it's a global issue, and we also been facing the pandemic in Seychelles. What I would like to say from the perspective of I think the proposal of having sort of an incubator to be able to help pool resources on the continent to mitigate the pandemic, what I would share with you our experience, I think we in Seychelles, demographically, we are very much challenged. And also our institutions are very young. And we don't have also the economies of scale for expansion of large research institute. But there is one thing that during COVID-19 that is, despite the fact that countries were locked down and there was no mobility, physical mobility, one thing that we were able to tap to contain the virus is mobility of knowledge. So I think this is one area that we can, short term, we can see how we can tap, not only in the African knowledge pool. We know we're tapping in the global pool, but one thing that we use a lot in Seychelles through our institution is tapping into the knowledge of our diaspora. And the diaspora really have a broad network. And in fact, we have 2 projects that is COVID related, which we're working with one of our diaspora who's an eminent professor at Johns Hopkins University. We were active in developing a solution, digital solution for tracking, for tracing and tracking, also health management system for containing, and we are deploying the system. But we have also, because we are using advanced technology, API technology, we also think we can also integrate some of the development that is happening at Johns Hopkins University through our diaspora. And this shows how we can tap into our diaspora while we also we organize ourselves for the post-COVID, where we can also have our incubators with pulling together the continental resources. That's my proposal. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Estiko. We are going to move to other questions, starting with Musa Aria. But before coming back to Musa Aria, Dr. Tobin, you'll be also helping us, even though you are the moderator, you can also respond. We saw some questions from Professor Biaka in Cote d'Ivoire. They have they have a granting council. He was asking, why are we not having an agency on the continent to handle this thing of drug? For your information, on the continent, we have already something like that, which is going to be implemented accordingly, that we call Africa Medicine Agency, HAMA. So for those who are really concerned, just be fine. We are going to move to Musa Aria for the next question. Musa Aria. Aria, please, you have the mic. Okay, we are going to move, because Musa Aria is not speaking, let us move to James Koba. James Koba. James Koba. Ilunga Kamika.
Yes, good day. It's Ilunga Kamika speaking here. Thank you for a very wonderful presentation. But I have one question that was really bothering me. It's about funding. While we're talking about innovations and technology and so on and so forth, what AU will fund all this program that we're talking about, because we know without funding there is no innovations, and how are we going to fund those innovations around COVID-19? How to kickstart what those innovations?
Thank you. The last question, and once you speak, you can mute your mic, please. We have Musa Aria once again, or James Koba. If you are not there, then we are going to move to Abe Ezra. It will be the last set before we get responses. And then we are going to come back to you.
Can I ask you? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just have two questions here. The first is based on my experience here in Ethiopia. I was just wondering whether the AU has a budget for testing, because we were planning to have antibody test with EBTI under the Ministry of Innovation and Technology in Ethiopia. We're trying to assess how many people have an antibody for COVID-19, but we couldn't find any funding to do such a research. We're planning to have in collaboration with Yale University, but there was no money to do the research here. In Ethiopia, it is EBTI who's doing the antigen, the final positive and the negative testing, but they couldn't find money to do the antigen or antibody test. So I was just, when I heard from Monica about AU, they have a fund for that. Is there the possibility to do such a research? Is there the possibility of finding a fund from the AU? That's my first question. My second question is about education, especially online education. I learned much from Monica. I think you covered a lot. So I think, let me start my question by kind of one proverb. There was a research in Hemingway theory. There was one guy who bankrupt, and they asked him, how did you fail bankrupt? You were so much rich. And he said, first gradually, and finally suddenly. The future is kind of more technology driven, digital technology. The West has been working gradually, and now they are moving suddenly into a digital economy, into a digital education, into a digital services. But we African, we're not gradually moving into the digitals. Now we are suddenly forced to go to digital. And the future is going to be very digital. Although it's very difficult to tell about the future, because we are good to predict from known unknowns, unknown knowns, but now we are dealing with unknown unknowns. So how we are preparing for a future online education?
Thank you very much. Let us add again, because each of you will ask one question. We have 40 minutes for questions. So we need speakers, participant to be short. Otherwise, the one who should respond might be lost. We go straight to the question, and then we get responses. So let us first allow our speaker to respond, including Dr. Tobin, who is the moderator. Then we'll come back to those who raise their hand, because we have 40 minutes for you. Thank you.
Okay. Can I come in? Hello?
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
With regards to the question on budget for testing of in Ethiopia, like I earlier mentioned, the funds that is being created at the level of the African Union were for specific areas, for capacity for the African CDC to support member states, of course, and also for procurement and so on and so forth. So I would like to suggest that you may need to get in touch with the African Union CDC, which is here in Ethiopia, in Addis Ababa, to find out the opportunities that are available, for funding this kind of program that you have indicated. So it will be very good for you to just come and have a chat with them. Probably they may be able to help you with where you can find a fund, or if fund is available to support your program. Now, on the other issue of funding, yes, I would like to say that we all acknowledge that funding is a key. And that is the reason why the African Ministers of Science, Technology, Education, Science and Technology emphasize the need that we should do everything possible to expedite the action on establishing the Education, Science and Technology and Innovation Fund. And like I said earlier, we have kickstarted the dialogues with the African Development Bank, and a task force has been set out, to work out the modalities for this fund. Now on how prepared are we for online education? I think this is the responsibility of everyone, responsibility of all the stakeholders, of government and everyone. So I would not say that, it's not just about African Union, but for everyone. Now that we have found ourselves in this situation, what is the way forward? How can we ensure that education actually gets to the grassroots? Thank you. That's what I would say for now.
We are going to move to James Koba. We have the Permanent Secretary of DRC, Odon Vincent Dambu, and we have Matthew Sande Dada. After that, we have Baptiste. We are going to take 4 questions. Let us take 5. We are going to add Bello Usman. So James Koba, the Secretary General in DRC in charge of scientific research, Matthew Sande Dada, Baptiste, and Bello Usman. James, you have the mic. James is not talking. Let us move to the Permanent Secretary in DRC.
Merci beaucoup. Je dois d'abord féliciter Madame Monica pour son exposé. J'ai deux petites préoccupations. La première, comment ça accéder à ces fonds de l'Union africaine sur la COVID-19. Deuxièmement, y a-t-il aujourd'hui un protocole pour l'Afrique? Les Africains sont guéris, mais par quel protocole? Aujourd'hui, on peut dire qu'il y a un protocole pour l'Afrique, pour le COVID-19.
Merci. On va passer à Mathieu Dada. La question est bien.
Quels sont les efforts aujourd'hui fournis par l'Union africaine pour avoir un protocole unique pour le COVID-19?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Thank you,
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My question is on the strategies AU has put in place to bring about synergy between the university system, ministries, and other parastatals that will bring about synergy to ensure that university take its rightful place as a leading researcher in developing innovation to provide palliative or succor for COVID-19. What are the strategies has AU put in place? That's the question, please. I don't know whether you understand my question. Talking about strategies to bring synergies.
Yes, they receive your question. Please mute the mic because we can hear a kid in the background. Thank you so very much. We'll move to the next participant who has a question. Baptiste. Baptiste. Baptiste, can you unmute your mic, please? Thank you. Baptiste, can you unmute your mic, please?
Yeah, I'm okay now.
Thank you.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I was asking about what Africa is doing as mentoring and capacity building of young innovators or creativity ideas in industrialization development, such as is there a platform of innovators who succeeded the ideas to link young innovators as a mentoring and capacity building framework? Is that my question?
Thank you, Baptiste. Now let us take Bello, then we go to responses. Bello Usman. Unmute your mic, please, Bello Usman. Bello Usman, okay, thank you. Dr. Tobin, you have the floor with all the speakers. Hello, Dr. Tobin? Hello, Dr. Tobin?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, just a general remark. Just remember, by mid-March, when the pandemic broke in this country, at the our National Committee on Ethics, we had a meeting, and the question we're asking, do we have in this country or in other countries review all of existing mechanism to face any epidemiological situation? It so happened that there was one, but that not been kept alive. I think that in such conditions, if we do some research, we may save time and not have to reinvent the wheel as far as mechanisms are concerned or resources available but not used, resources that was kept asleep. Now, a second general remark, we may not have time to come back in a more detailed manner. Those questions pertaining to common African position on food and drug administration and African protocol to deal with any pandemic, including COVID. These, I think, are very serious questions for us to be prepared to take any unwanted situation. But it needs, I think, a thorough reflection that the AU may embark on sometime later.
Thank you, Mr. Stico. Mr. Stico, Dr. Monica, you can also respond.
Thank you, Mr. Lukovic. I would like to probably contribute a little bit on the question about funding. The COVID-19 brings two dimensions. One definitely is the health emergency, the uncertainty, and how to mitigate this pandemic with urgency. But there is another dimension, which is the economic revival, the urgency. So when I started my presentation in the innovation, I started by the funding. So I highlighted that to develop the blue economy space, we need a lot of funding. So we didn't have funding either. So innovative financing mechanism can be also sought somehow in the post-COVID as we look at the economic revival. So in our case, we have raised through innovative financing in the excess of $25 million US, which is administered by Seychelles Climate Change Adaptation Fund for managing the blue economy in the blue economy space. So we have to also look at the possibility of innovative financing. Thank you.
Dr. Monica, we will also suggest that the Prof. Fred Gold will focus more on innovation if we feel that it can also intervene with regard to emerging technology is more than welcome.
Okay, so respond to one of the questions on strategies that could bring, institutions like universities. I would like to say that Africa Union does not work in silos. Oftentimes we work with research institutions with ministries, universities, and so on and so forth. And with regards to that, during the ministerial meeting that was held on the 30th of April, much emphasis was placed on that, the need for us to strengthen existing networks that we know are working in this area that needs intervention for COVID-19. And of course, the need for collaboration and the inclusiveness of everyone who is within that area. Now on innovation, young innovators, I really didn't get the question very well. Well, I would like to highlight here that one of the programs that we have with the European Union is on innovation. And thus far we have organized a couple of forums for young innovators between Africa and Europe, and it continues. It's one of the areas that we are hoping, to further place much emphasis during the meeting we will have on the 18th of June. The meeting, high-level panel meeting that we'll have on the 18th of June, to see how we can effectively use the innovators that we have between the two continents, to work out something in response to COVID-19. So, over.
Thank you, Dr. Monica.
Question?
Thank you, Doctor. Yes, you can, if you have other responses, otherwise we'll move to other questions. And before moving to other questions, we need Prof. Fred Gold, who's focusing on innovation and emerging technology, to also comment a little bit for the audience, Prof. And we move to other questions. Dr. Monica, if you have another response, please feel free before we move to the list of those who are asking questions. Are you comfortable? Are you fine, Dr. Monica? Are you fine? Are you done with your responses?
If others have, they can continue and I may come back.
Much appreciated, Dr. Monica. Prof. Fred Gold, if you can unmute your mic and then comment a little bit for us, Prof. Come back, Prof.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you 100%, Prof.
That is impressive. The technology is always a challenge. I'm going to make a very simple comment, listening to all of the arguments about emerging technologies, about the importance of education by whatever means in solving African problems in an African way, which I totally support. The observation that I'm going to make is that we are talking about emerging technologies, and the consequence of those for what we are trying to do, whether it is solving economic problems or social problems, they are all part of this game. The African Innovation Outlook has gone through 3 editions looking at innovation and research and development and other technological activities. And if we are going to look at the broader perspective at emerging technologies, at the fact that the economy is becoming digital, as we are demonstrating by our discussion today, and how the definition of innovation, about to say delivered by the OECD, but it is actually delivered by all the people that sit at the table, including the African Union and the African Union Commission. So we all have a voice in the definition of innovation, is now able to deal with any economic sector, not just the business sector, which has been the case for about 30 years. So pulling together all of the questions that I have heard this afternoon, if we are going to produce a socially relevant African Innovation Outlook 4th edition, we are going to have to take on board many of the comments that you made, dealing with innovation in all sectors, not just the business sector, dealing with the fact that we are in a digital economy, which changes the way in which we do everything. And this is actually a very exciting, one could use the word daunting time in African statistics. Thank you, Zeke.
Welcome, Prof. I'm going to move to the next. We have Oluwayemisi Famodu Titas. We have Jay, we have Samuel Atintono, we have Professor Leo Kamwanja from Malawi. So you have the floor. Please ask a question.
Okay. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
100%.
Yes, please. I think Dr. Monica mentioned something about the software, online and offline software for educational system that can be used. Currently, I work with ECOWAS under the ECOWAS volunteer program, and I'm assigned to the Ministry of Education. And so far, we've not heard about such software, and would really love to have access to that software, because here, online education, especially for the rural area, like she mentioned, is nothing to write home about. We're struggling a lot here. Teachers are really struggling. We have not been able to get in touch with these children for the past 3 months. And so the offline will really be helpful. The offline software will be helpful as well. And if we can also have a point of contact where professionals in different fields, where the African diaspora professional can lay complaints or suggestions, bring up their ideas. We need to know the go-to person to communicate with, maybe given to us. I'm a Nigerian and I'm serving in Liberia as we speak. And I have other of my colleagues as well that are here from different parts of the African country, states. So I really want to appreciate all the professors and all the facilitators of this program. Thank you very much for bringing us together.
Much appreciated. Jay and Prof. Leonard Kamwanja, then we'll go back to Dr. Tobin.
Yes, Jay is here. Can you hear me?
Yes, Jay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you 100%.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon. I happen to be one of the people the late professor had an impact on before he passed away. And since then, I work for the government and I've been doing some things. What I see with COVID is an opportunity. We never knew, like in Senegal, we had guys that could do ventilators. Even here in Sierra Leone, we had somebody that came up with something. Now, my question is a bit maybe obscure, but I'm looking at things from a different angle, because there's a difference between innovation and entrepreneurship. Whilst we seek for funding from African Union or wherever, I also think the private sector has a role to play. My contribution will be to build an ecosystem where we prepare people. And when you prepare people, we harness the talents across the continent, bring them together in any way so that they can collaborate, put together these efforts. We'll be able to attract private funds or angelic funds that could lead us beyond just innovating, but having entrepreneurial outputs that will create financial or digital dividend for our continent. So whilst we put together a lot of things for African Union, I think we'll need to look at how do we harness the potentials across the continent and create a platform for collaboration. So when people begin to see results, latent money could be somewhere, and it can be used to just spring up entrepreneurial outputs that could just generate a lot of resources for the continent. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jay. Prof. Kamwanja.
Hello, can you hear me?
Person Prof.
Yes, please. I would like to interact with Monica. Hello?
Yeah, you Prof. You can proceed, please.
Okay. Schools, universities are closed in most of the countries, including our country. And yet, we have politicians running all over the place campaigning. And this is a very, very difficult time under the pandemic. How can the AU assist? And what have they done? Because I'm sure they are aware that this is happening. Thank you.
Asia, Prof. Kamwanja, I'm going to hand over to Dr. Tobin, and I need to ask one question that Mr. Kalombo raised during our Tuesday webinar about chloroquine. What is the way forward? Should we use chloroquine to fight COVID as part of emerging technology? Should we focus on gene drive? We need also some comment on that. Thank you. Dr. Tobin.
I would suggest that those of us who are decision makers or advisors to decision makers should put the stress on how to deal with national sovereignties and the global issues and solutions in situations like this. Because there have been obstacles to putting in place some solutions because our decision makers couldn't have the means to implement homegrown solutions. I also heard a suggestion for an African health body, global covering one Africa-wide body. Maybe it's time for us to revive, to redynamize those bodies, regional or national health bodies that's in existence, to come to a closer and better cooperation in situations like that of COVID-19. That was my suggestion.
Thank you, Dr. Monica. Mrs. Siko? Dr. Monica, Mr. Siko?
Thank you, Mr. Lukovi. I think Dr. Monica can proceed and I'll follow up. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you, Dr. Monica.
Okay. There was a question from the colleague from ECOWAS on the digital connectivity for offline and online learning that I mentioned about. This was an approach that was proposed to member states. So member states are supposed to develop that. So working together with us, they're supposed to come up, to develop that approach. So it's not something that is coming directly from us per se. Then there was a question on how can African Union assist with the pandemic. I think I have taken a time enough to enumerate a bit of what the African Union is doing in the context of COVID-19 responses. And I don't know if the person who asked the question came late, but I took time to enumerate some of the issues and areas where we are focusing and what has been achieved and what is being done so far. Now, ecosystem to prepare. Please, can you remind me of other questions?
That's chloroquine. And how may we use emerging technology to address all those problems we are facing now? Because today is SARS-CoV-2, tomorrow we don't know what's going to happen. While we know malaria is affecting us. So we got a question on Tuesday. What's the position about chloroquine?
Well, I'm not the specialist in that area, but however, I would want to say here that, the African CDC is doing a lot in the area of testing of some of these medicines and drugs that are being proposed that they could do a lot, with regards to COVID-19. I know that they're doing a lot of clinical testing with some laboratories, but I don't have the full details. And also know that our office in Abuja is also looking into the area of African indigenous knowledge and medicinal plants. A lot of work is going on. I may not be able to give you the details of what is happening here, but I know that a lot of work is going on. So you may need to go to the website of the Scientific Technical Research committee or whatever of the African Union in Abuja and also the African CDC. You will get in, you may probably get information on what is happening with regards to chloroquine. But what I know is that the African Union CDC is not just sitting, they are doing some clinical trials on some of these acclaimed drugs within Africa. Thank you.
Dr. Monica, Samuel Atintono, you have your hands up, please proceed. Samuel Atintono. We have again Mr. Colombo from South Africa, CSRR. While we are waiting for Samuel Atintono to speak. Samuel, okay, Samuel, please introduce yourself and then you can ask the question.
This is Mr. Colombo.
Can you hear me?
Okay, let us start with Samuel, please start. And
can you hear me?
Colombo. Yes, we can hear you, Samuel.
All right, first of all, I want to thank the presenters for their brilliant presentations. My question concerns the initiative UNEPAD has put in place for schools in AU countries to reopen in the midst of this COVID-19. I think Dr. Mbele mentioned that there are specific kinds of initiatives that have been put in place. And my question is, have you made this available to countries saying that their teachers are aware as to what to do when we have to open? Because I'm speaking from Ghana and we're yet to open, and the government was sort of looking for proposal from teachers' unions, education practitioners as to how we could resume, and the discussions weren't quite good because we're still afraid about health and safety measures put in place to ensure that when the children return to school, we could be safe. I'm happy AU have put in some initiative. My question then is, how do you make this available to us to know? And last part is just a suggestion that I'm happy we are participating in this webinar. Is it possible you could create a platform for education practitioners, teachers, policy makers to dialogue and share best practices? What is it that is happening in Kenya that they are putting in place for schools to resume? How about Uganda? How about South Africa? I would be happy if such an opportunity is given. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
You're more than welcome, Mr. Colombo. Colombo, you have the mic.
So much. I mean, I just want to say thank you to the AUDA for the invite and also for the wonderful presentation. Now, one of my intervention is regarding the innovation. I mean, there is a shared view that we need to harness and converge the African innovation for us to solve the African problems with African solutions. Now, something that came to my mind is about the barrier for openness in terms of innovation. I don't know if the AU is putting in place a legal framework in terms of the IP management. I mean, I can be an innovator, but I don't want to share my innovation with anyone else. I mean, what is it that AU is doing in terms of allowing that innovation to start flowing freely on the continent? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Colombo. Before I hand over to Dr. Tobin, because we receive a question, I need to hear Dr. Moses Mafike Sitole from South Africa. They are in charge of data collection, R&D innovation. If you can share with us the aspect of discovery and protection raised by Mr. Colombo. Dr. Mafike Sitole. Dr. Sitole. Dr. Moses Sitole. Okay, while we are waiting for Dr. Moses Sitole, Dr. Tobin, please carry on.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the gentleman from Ghana's question properly, so some wasn't okay. I couldn't get his question or his remark.
Continue.
Please make it 3 seconds or 4. Can you elaborate a little bit? Ghana asked the issue of having a platform, because what is happening is everywhere on the continent. There is a possibility for us to have a platform to allow all the practitioners and people involved in most of the discipline to really connect a community of best practice. So that was a bit of that was one of the aspects raised. And Dr. Moses, I don't know if you are there while Dr. Tobin need to respond. Dr. Moses, can you share with us your experience on protection? Before Dr. Tobin, Mr. Estiko, and Dr. Monica respond, and then I hand over to Dr. Justina.
If you can help me, Mr. Lukovu, align my response with protection with regard to what?
Innovation, because Mr. Kalombo from CSR raised an issue of innovation among innovators, how we have to protect them. So since you have a very long experience in R&D and innovation survey in South Africa, and we know in the innovation questionnaire, we have the aspect of protection of discovery. If you can share a little bit on that.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Now I understand how the question is framed. Yes, South Africa conducts the Business Innovation Survey, and we in the Center for Science, Technology and Innovation Indicators are tasked with conducting that survey. And we follow the Oslo methodology, and which in which we use the CIS-like instrument, which includes a question on protection. Specifically, we have a question on protecting the rights of inventors, of innovators, including trademarks, and also including trade secrets, and using other forms of intellectual property property rights protection, and what we have observed in the South African data is that the most highly used form of protection is trademarks and secrets, and so that is what the South African businesses use the most. And this is actually aligned with what we see in the literature, that businesses in other countries also use that kind of protection in the African context. Thank you.
Meeting, or you're watching YouTube? No, it's a meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Moses. Dr. Moses, are you done? If we can now hand over to Dr. Tobin, Dr. Monica, Mr. Xavier.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Thank you, Mr.
You are welcome. While I'm handing over to Dr. Tobin, Mr. Estiko, and Dr. Monica, before Dr. Jacina close, we need to really thank you on my side, because we need to inform you that those who are involved in R&D and innovation measurement, and those who are involved in innovation and emerging technology, we are part of one platform. So you'll be involved in most of those meetings about on collective human executive dialogue on innovation and emerging technology. Don't be surprised if we come back to you, inviting you to join, some of you did join already. So now we are combining ASTI expert and the CJD expert, and big guided by the APET, the high level and emerging technology. So we are now one family. We have to support one another on innovation. Dr. Tobin, I'm giving the floor, and thank you for allowing me to facilitate. Tobin, Mr. Estiko, Dr. Monica, you can respond, and please give also your final comments. Yeah, thank you so very much.
Can you hear me now? I'll be brief as usual. I think, speaking of platforms, I think it's a matter of leadership, and leadership may come from foundations, from universities, from private institutions, and not only from the governments or governmental organizations. It's a matter of imagination and creativity. And I think imagination and creativity is what is needed when we speak of emerging technologies and imagining the future we want for Africa. Thank you.
Mr. Estiko, Dr. Monica?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Lukovi. My last comment will relates to the digital transformation and the continent. And
hello, Mr. Estiko, we cannot get you very well. Hello, Mr. Estiko. Hello, Mr. Estiko. Hello, Mr. Estiko. Dr. Monica, may you please intervene while we are waiting for Mr. Estiko? Yes. Hello, Mr. Estiko?
Just a minute. You hear me now?
It's okay. Yes, 100%, Mr. Estiko.
Okay, my last comment relates to the digital transformation of the continent. I mean, because innovation will also need the backbone of ICT. So one aspect is, which I put to test our system during the COVID pandemic, is the quality of our ICT infrastructure. I would say that because when the countries locked down, there was an attempt that we would work from home. So this really proved that our capacity to be able to have this quality internet connectivity was not there. So it may be also a common issue on the continent. So actually into the quality of the infrastructure that we put forth for us to have this digital transformation. And the other factor also is looking at the cost, because it requires a cost for data. And the cost of data is not cheap on the continent. And here in Seychelles, it's not either cheap. And if we're not careful, we will have what you call technology divide society, those who would have, and those who would have not. So this is something to be considered when we're talking about digital transformation on the continent. And the third thing that we realize, because we've been working from home for nine months, and it's not only the physical infrastructure that we look at, it's also the human factors that affects also the digital transformation. This is my last comment, and I would like to thank you all for listening to my presentation and my comment. Thank you.
Yeah. Dr. Monica? Hello, Dr. Monica?
Yeah, I'm here. I would like to thank you, colleagues, for your excellent questions. And I want to say that we are all sure that, COVID-19 came with lots of challenges that we were not all prepared for. But however, it has also opened our eyes that we need to do a lot. There's a lot more to do together. There's a lot more for us to collaborate on. It has also, to my little knowledge, I know that, it has stimulated a lot of thoughts and research in various areas and various sectors, and which probably in a short while, we'll begin to see the dividends of those research and some of the things that has been put in place within our context as Africans, to cope with our challenges. I believe that what is already going on around Africa will eventually form a base for any other pandemic that may come, that may arise again in the future. I'm sure that, with this awakening, we're not going to be taken unawares again. And like I said earlier, very soon we'll begin to see. We actually have requested member states, that we need to begin to document all their experiences. We need to, some of the things that they did to cope with COVID-19. I'm sure that very soon we are going to have a database in this area that could help us to move forward and to also face the challenges of the future. Thank you very much for having me on here. And should you have any further questions, please, you can get my email address, so that, we can continue from there. Thank you, colleagues.
With 88 participants on Tuesday, 56 participants today, I need to hand over to my immediate supervisor because we are going also to have you next month, who's going to close the meeting. Thank you so very much. Dr. Jacina, you have the mic.
Thank you very much, Seke. I would really like to express our thanks and appreciation on behalf of AUD in EPAD for really taking time out of your busy schedules, distinguished participants, to join us this afternoon. As we had said earlier, we really do not take this for granted. We know that you have various demands on your time, and so setting time aside to be with us, it is highly appreciated. We'd like to first of all thank the speakers, Mr. Stiko, Dr. Edinoba, and Dr. Tobin, for such a brilliant presentations, and also assisting us in addressing all the questions that were asked. We also thank the interpreters. We know that we had a bit of a hitch in the beginning, and we do apologize for that, but we thank the interpreters as well. Just to reiterate that the Callistus Juma Executive Dialogue is actually a platform that brings together executives, policy decision makers, to share ideas, to share national experiences, just as we have done this afternoon. And so we are going to be organizing these dialogues 2 times a month. And so we'd like to invite you to join us again on the next one, which I believe is taking place on the 11th of June. We're going to send out the invitations and more information in due course. So, dear colleagues, thank you once again for your time, for such a really productive deliberation this afternoon. Thank you, and we wish you well. Please stay safe during this pandemic, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you so much. And so with this short remarks, we do bring this webinar to a close. Thank you. So bye for now.
Thanks a lot.
Okay.
You're welcome. You are more than welcome.
Yes, thank you very much. Today the Arabic worked perfectly, so I'm really excited about that. Thank you. Yeah, okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Bye.